Hello everybody, today I'm giving a subjective review on the EBC RedStuff brake pads. I've had them on my 2014 BMW 650i for a little over 15,000 kilometers now. I've driven them through all the Canadian seasons, starting with fall, then winter, spring, and now summer. Take them to the track. Actually, I've only really taken them to the track once and really driven them hard. Um, I now have I think a pretty good idea as for what kind of a brake pad they are and who they're used for. And I'm going to start with what I like about the EBC brake pads in general. So for one, the shape of all the pads, whether that's like any model in their lineup, they all have the chamfered edge for silent operation, and they all have an expansion groove down the middle, which is very important for any brake pad. I don't think I would want a brake pad without that, just because they are prone to cracking down the middle should you step on them a little bit too much and they overheat. And I've experienced that firsthand. It's not a pleasant feeling when they do crack. I also like that they color them so that you know what model they are. It's not like just like a generic number letter pattern that's not super easy to remember. The colors kind of make it easy. It's like, oh, red is for this and yellow is this. I really do like the bed encoding. I find that it helps, especially if you have used rotors that you're trying to reuse, and they're not in too bad of a shape. It makes it really good. I experienced it pretty much firsthand on the E-Class Mercedes, where I didn't like the brake pad that I was using, which was also an EBC product, and I switched it to another EBC product with the bed encoding, and it basically removed the old pad material on the rotor, and I didn't have to do any machining, so that was really convenient. I like that about the EBC pads. Things I don't like about the EBC pads, so they don't really give you all that much other than the brake pads themselves when you buy them. So there's no lubricants, and there's no brake wear sensors when that's needed, and they are needed. So either you have to reuse your old ones or buy new. The other thing I don't like about them is you have a pretty long bed in period of about 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers, depending on your sort of case. And I think that's kind of a long time to not, especially at the beginning. I think it's about 250 kilometers or 100 kilometers, something like that, where you're not even supposed to like come to a full stop or brake aggressively. And then afterwards you can start to brake a little bit more aggressively, but you have to be very gentle. Anywho, moving on to the RedStuff pads specifically, my main thing that I see with these brake pads is that they're sort of a jack of all trades, but a master of none. For instance, brake dust, they're ceramic brake pads, but compared to other ceramic brake pads, they do dust quite a lot. The Acabona brake pads, they really don't dust at all. If you compare them to the RedStuff are horrendous for brake dust. But if you compare them to, say, like an original Brembo semi-metallic brake pad or an EBC yellow stuff brake pad, they're a lot less dusty. But I did notice that the dust is it's very sticky. It doesn't just blow away like other brake pads, like the EBC Ultima X2 or the yellow stuff. The yellow stuffs, you could basically just wash them like with a pressure washer and most of it would come off. Whereas these ones, you actually need to get some sort of a solution. You need soapy water and a rag, really, to just get that brake dust off. The bite isn't terrible. It's pretty just normal feeling if you've driven on other brake pads. Maybe even a little bit better than most ceramic brake pads, but they're definitely not as good as, say, a yellow stuff brake pad. From cold, they're still very good when they're cold. They're not like super, slippery and unusable. Very normal feeling. And then once they heat up, they also take it pretty good. I don't see how people could need more brake pad on a street car, especially if you drive it like a street car is designed to be driven. If you're overheating these brake pads on the road, you shouldn't be driving on the road. You should be on a racetrack. So they have good bite overall for a street pad. Once you start to get into the sort of racy applications, you'll definitely start to notice that the pads will be a little bit more unhappy, especially after about the third pass on the quarter mile. I noticed that they weren't super happy anymore. They weren't like stopping braking, but you could just feel the pedal just acting a little bit differently. You could tell by the surface of the rotor that it was getting quite blue, and yeah, and you could also tell that they were quite squeaky on the track. Once the blue coating sort of went away, I started to notice that the squeaking also went away, but until then they were quite squeaky for some time, probably 20-30 kilometers of driving, and that went away. Talking about squeakiness, they are always squeaky no matter what temperature they're sort of at. They have this pads have a distinctive screeching noise when they are at slow speeds, so anything around 10 kilometers an hour and under, coming to a gentle stop, you will definitely notice some sort of a screeching noise. It's not super loud, but it is there. So if that bothers you, nothing you can do. I did notice some pad transfer spots on the surface of the rotor. You can definitely make it out, sometimes more than other times, depending on how I'm driving. But lots of stop and go definitely leaves some spots on there. Nothing apparently big enough that I can feel it when I come to like a stop. Like I don't feel like any shimmying in the wheel when I'm braking, which is good. I think it's perfectly acceptable. In conclusion, EBC RedStuff is kind of a jack of all trades pads. It's not as bitey as a normal semi-metallic like sporty pad. It's a little bit squeaky, not super squeaky, and the dust is not super bad for an EBC pad, but the dust is still there, and it's not super easy to clean off. A very usable street pad. You can use it basically for a daily driver car without issues. It's once you really start to push on them that I think that you should definitely consider stepping up to something like a yellow stuff pad or blue stuff, or one of their even more performance oriented brake pads. So in that regard, I think that as a daily driver they're pretty good. It's just you have to put up with those slight nuances, like the screechiness of them at slow speeds and the brake dust that is there and is not super easy to clean up. So if those two things sort of work for you, I think that you will be very happy with these brake pads and should have no issues with them. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and we'll see you next video.